This is the Hanging with A podcast.
What's up? This is the Hanging with A podcast, coming to you always from Brockton, Massachusetts. As I say all the time, I want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the Hanging with A podcast, everybody who's taken the time to watch an episode, like an episode. I tell you guys this all the time. None of this happens without all of you. So just thank you for just keeping me relevant and just, keeping me going here, because I really enjoy doing this. I really love doing this. And clearly you guys love what I'm doing because you continue to support me. So thank you very much. You can find the Hanging with A podcast on YouTube. I'm on Spotify. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. As I say all the time, I'm all over the place. Please like, subscribe, share this video. I really would appreciate that. Thank you very much. I always say that, my episodes are very special, but this one is very special and very unique. This young lady that I'm getting ready to introduce, I have known her for a really, really long time. I met her when I was in 8th grade at Patuxent Valley Middle School. Shout out to Patuxent Valley Middle School. Shout out to Maryland. And we have been close ever since then. Her cousin is my best friend, has been my best friend for 24 years now. Her family is like my second family. I love them so much. And she's been a very, very big supporter of what I'm doing, just, supporting me and rooting for me. So I'm lucky to have her come on the podcast and talk about all the wonderful things that she is doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you, Christina.
Hello! I am so excited to be here and just really grateful to share this opportunity with you to come on and just say congratulations to you. And
thank you.
So incredibly proud of you for so many reasons. I definitely want to extend my congratulations for even the recent wedding, and your name change is so dope. And I'm just so incredibly proud and happy for you. And if anyone understands relocation, you do. So I'm really excited to talk about that with you and just to share space with you. So thank you so much for having me on.
No problem at all. Thank you for being a part of this. Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell the people who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Christina, and like Abe shared, I grew up with you. We grew up in Howard County, Maryland for quite a few years. I'm from there. That's my hometown. I have recently, almost 3 years ago, relocated to the Nashville, Tennessee area as a single mom, and have been navigating life here. And I'm excited to share all the ups and downs that, that experience has garnered for me. And I'm a mom, I am a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm all of those things, and, an inspiring and aspiring entrepreneur, and, really excited to be able to share space in that as well. So I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you. How was life for you growing up?
Oh my gosh, I had a very, very special childhood. As you shared, I am the youngest of 4 cousins born in the same year of 85. So Maurice came first, and then my cousin Tenard, and then Craig, and then me. And I come from a very large family. So my grandparents had 7 kids, and from that, they all had a ton of kids, and I'm one of their grandkids, and just grew up in an area where everyone is your family. Everyone knows your family. I'm sure you're very familiar, even though you moved to there. Yeah. And we are just so welcoming. And I think the really unique experience for me was growing up and being around my grandparents so often. Everyone is treated like family in their home. And so that's something they are very big on, is extending generosity and kindness to, anyone that we welcome in as part of our family. So my mom raised myself and my sister. My sister and I are 6 years apart. I also have a brother with my dad and my stepmom. And so spent my childhood really just doing some really incredible things. As I look back, I was a cheerleader since I was 5 years old. I mean, I did all-star cheerleading growing up, which is competitive cheer. So I always have had a very competitive spirit. Did high school cheerleading once I made it to long reach. And then, just continued to pursue my own hopes and dreams after I graduated from high school. I have shared with you very avidly that I went to college for a short time and then decided that wasn't for me, and joined the workforce and have been working ever since and navigating through that. But my childhood just, for me, I look back and I'm like, growing up in a place like Howard County, you just can't replace the memories that we had there, the experiences, the people that you meet. I mean, it is a melting pot of so many different nationalities, and I'm really grateful for the exposure that it offered to me. Even throughout my childhood, I look back at people who have made an impact on me, and, if I had not grown up there, that would have never happened. So I'm really, really grateful for that. I moved in with my grandparents when I was about 13 years old. So my grandma and my grandpa raised myself and Maurice. And so we were very close through adulthood, and even into adulthood, my son and I would go back there every Wednesday night for dinner. So that was something that was really special to us prior to moving here. So I don't really have any very negative things about the way that I grew up. And, I had a ton of friends. A lot of those friends, have remained associates or people that I'm still able to connect with via social media. And then also I have my longest girlfriend group. We have a chat message and it's called Established 1999. So we've been friends since 1999, and through COVID we would get on Zooms and keep up with one another. And I just think that's even really unique to hear any young woman talk about having friends for that long.
Yeah.
That doesn't come with without adversity or things that happen, but still navigating in that space, I'm really grateful for the exposure that was offered to me from growing up there.
Yeah. I mean, Howard County is a beautiful place, and it's just so many memories, you know what I mean? I still think about things like when we were growing up. I think about, we went to middle school at, where I went to high school at. It's just it's just, I don't know. I just feel like you grow attached to it, you know what I mean, for the rest of your life. And I feel like that's what it's done for me. And I'm pretty sure that's what it's done for you as well.
Very special place for sure.
This is one of the things I admire about you a lot. We've talked about this offline a lot, like your spiritual journey and your belief in Christ and all those good things. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, your spiritual journey and what that's been like for you?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I grew up in the church. I grew up running through the pews of First Baptist of Guilford Church when my grandma would be singing on the choir, and my mom worked. Her shift was 3 to 11, so my mom worked nights at the time. And so my grandma would babysit us, and when she would babysit us, we would have to go to her choir practice. So me and my cousins or just different people from the neighborhood would be running through these pews and, sneaking in and out of doors and hanging out at the church. And then I remember when I went to I think I was in Sunday school, or it may have been a summer program at the church, and I dedicated my life to Christ at 11. I remember that for the first time. I still remember I had a little red dress with white sunflowers on it. That's how vivid the memory is in my mind. And I knew then I didn't want to go to hell. I remember thinking that, and I knew I understood what heaven and hell was. And just spending so much time with her there, I knew that I never wanted that to be my story. And then throughout life and adulthood, you definitely drift away from your faith and you try to find your way back. I think one time in my 20s, I went back and rededicated my life to Christ at my mom's church, and she belonged to First Baptist of Glenarden. And so that was, a big deal for me at the time. And then again, kind of drifted away. And I will say the most prominent time for me has been this most recent experience in the last few years. So before I relocated, I started attending church it was Destiny Church in Columbia, Maryland, and then it has now changed, and so the name has changed as well. It's Union Church now, and I think so highly of the pastor there and just so many wonderful people that I've met. I became a part of groups there. And I felt like this was the perfect church home for me while I was there. I think that this journey came about because I went through a hardship. I went through an adversity where I made a choice and a decision to do something that impacted me greatly financially. And it was very hard for me to navigate through that process, and I had to find God on my own. And I knew I had a foundation that already existed, so I was able to tap into that. But then I think going back to that and navigating through, what does this look like for me? How am I exposing my son? What's my legacy look like for my son? What are we doing to make sure that he understands God and that he has a relationship with God? I will also say that even through that part of my spiritual journey, I tried to immerse myself in just making sure, like, even when I'm on social media, that the people that I'm following are reflective of the life that I would want to live and be proud of. Mm-hmm. Additionally, Union Church, which was Destiny then, offered this Saturday prayer. And I remember for 52 weeks out of the year, like, this, event that had happened in my life was so gut-wrenching for me and so heartbreaking. I went to Saturday prayer every Saturday except for one Saturday. Like, I couldn't always make it to church on Sunday, but Saturday prayer was where I would go and I would cry and I would call out to God and I would just, ask him to allow me to see me for me and allow me to change my heart, allow me to show up and be a person who, is transparent and is sharing things that he has called me to go through, because I think that that's impactful. I think that it can help make a difference for other people, and that's truly a gift. And I don't want to be someone who looks back at my life and says, hey, why didn't you do? I want to make sure that I've done everything that he's called me to do. And sometimes I don't want to do it. I will be very honest. There have been challenges, even with relocation and being a single mom, that have been incredibly hard for me. And I haven't always wanted to do those things. But I know that my impact, I hope and I pray that the right people are able to be inspired by some things that have happened to me, whether that be hardships or whether that be great things, the highs and the lows. I hope that someone can glean from those things and be able to learn from those things, and, that it helps them through their journey as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's well said. Beautiful. I just feel like, we all have, I feel like we all have a purpose and we all have a destination. And like, however we get to that destination, however we figure out what that purpose is, I feel like, if God is at the center of all of that, everything is going to be all right. You know what I mean? Because I feel like he'll show you the way and show you, where you need to be at. So that's good. You talked a little bit about like being a mom, a single mom at that. What is being a mom? What does that mean to you? What has that meant to you?
Oh my goodness. I have been a mom for so long. I feel like, I became a mom at a very young age, my early 20s. And that experience really, you don't really have an opportunity to even know who you are before you now have a person that you're responsible for. My son is now 15, and he is such an incredible gift. Motherhood is an opportunity to challenge your way of thinking, but to also encourage you. I think at times when I'm fearful or I think of like, oh my gosh, what could happen if I do X? Like an example is when we moved here, I had to send Justin back on his first flight to like go be in his dad's wedding. And that was his first flight that he was taking without me. So I'm praying over him and I'm like so nervous for him to be on the plane without me. And I'm scared, And I had to say, God gives us our children as a gift. And I very well think that Justin is a gift for me. And he was God's first before he was mine. So I honored that and saying, God would not allow me this opportunity to put my 12-year-old son on a plane if he wasn't going to protect him. And if he wasn't going to stand in for me, while I'm not there. And so I say that because motherhood often makes me have to move to the next step, even if I don't want to. It's like, it's this encouragement for you to take risks or try new things, even if you're not ready. And there's times where sometimes Justin will say something to me, or if he is asking something of me, he's so convicted in what he's saying, or what he's sharing with me, or what he's allowing me to be exposed to as far as what he's going through with his friends. I have to maybe challenge my way of thinking, or I may not have done it that way when I was a kid. Our experiences in childhood are so different. I love hearing him talk about his childhood. We lived in this incredible neighborhood in Maryland where we had, 9 boys that were 9 growing up at the same time. So with him being an only child, he had so many friends to choose from where he could always hang out with, always play with. There's somebody always at our house. And I just remember even, at that time, me praying and asking God, how am I supposed to show up here? And God's like, you have all these little children that you can be impactful to and have an impact on, make sure that you do right by them. And so I felt like there was never a time where I turned down a visit from a friend coming over, or like if he wanted to go and do something, I tried to always say yes, even beyond my own capacity. Like if I'm tired as a single mom, you still have to show up. And so I tried to still be able to say, yes, we can go to the basketball court, or yes, we can go to Chick-fil-A and you could take your 7 friends, even if I didn't want to, or yes, they can stay over here and play basketball, on your basketball hoop in your room all night long. And like, I'm exhausted, but that's just a part of motherhood. And so I feel really blessed to have Justin as my son, and I feel so grateful for the gift of motherhood. I've had so many friends who have been impacted by infertility, and I just am reminded all the time how special it is to even be a parent, and how grateful I am to even be able to have him as my son. And I hope he feels the same way when he grows up. I hope he looks back and he's like, my mom tried her best. And I think that's just part of also being a single mom, is sometimes you look back and you don't have anyone to kind of spin things off of and say, hey, am I making the best choice right now? A lot of it may be experiences that I'm presented with, even moving here was like, is this the best choice for us to move? And it's just the 2 of us, because that's scary, having the ability to pick up and adjust, be us 2 moving. But I think that, as I go through therapy and I do my own work, even if you are questioning yourself, that your intentions are good. And I know that my intentions are always good. And I try to lead with that first. And I hope that makes me a really good mom. I hope so. I hope he thinks so once he gets older.
I definitely think he'll think so as he gets older. I feel like, as I gotten older, I really appreciate everything that my mom did for me. My mom being a single mom and having to do a lot of things on her own. It made me appreciate her a lot more. And I just have much more of appreciation for women who are out here, just doing it all on their own, because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to have to do, especially when you're raising a young man. So, much respect to you for that, because I know that can't be easy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's one of my favorite interviews, by the way, is you and your mom. I love that interview. I love the one with you and your wife too, but I love the one, with your mom. And I didn't know that, you grew up in Hawaii. I had no idea until I watched. So I thought that was just so dope that you had her on here.
Yeah,
So cool.
she's always asked, she's always like, another one of my big supporters. She's always supported me, and she's like, oh, I want to be on the podcast. And I thought she was joking at first, but then she kept asking me, and I was like, yeah, we can make it happen. So it just was nice to be able to have those conversations that I had with her. We talked about a ton of stuff. I lived in Hawaii till I was about 7 years old. We moved from Hawaii to North Carolina to Maryland. But when people ask me where I'm from, I say Maryland because that's where I spend most of my time. And that's where all my friends and all my childhood memories are in Maryland. So I know a little bit about Hawaii, but I don't know that much. So yeah, that's a good episode. I constantly play back that episode when I can to just watch it. And the joy that she had on her face and how proud she was of me. So it was nice. Talk to me about a little bit about your relocation. So you left Maryland to go to Nashville. What has that been like? Because then somebody that's that's also relocated. I know how hard that was for me. Like, so take me through that a little bit. Talk to me about that.
Oh my gosh. So right before COVID, like right when COVID had first started, I lost my job. And so that was incredibly challenging and that was hard. And I also look back at that time, like, again, this is when I feel like I really had to step into my faith journey because, you know, you're looking for things of evidence not seen. So at the time, I am having this job where I'm working in DC, I'm living in Maryland, I'm traveling every single week. I'm managing the US operations for a floral company. I'm stressed. You know, I remember living in Maryland and taking the train to go to work, and like I would have to take Justin to my neighbor's house and he had to be there by 6:36 so I could catch the 6:50 train and like be downtown to DC and then transfer, you know, to then take the metro and then get off and walk 3 blocks. And like I kind of look back now and I'm like, wow, that was actually a blessing in disguise. Like through the process, it did not feel that way. But I was literally exhausted. You know, I was trying my best to navigate working in the city because I'm sure, as you know, like it's important to, if you want to grow your career, you work in the city, you make money, and then you come home, you live in the suburbs. So you can have this great suburban education for your child. And I was tired. So I lost my job and, you know, I had savings built up. So we stayed in our apartment for, I think, about 6 months almost. And then finally, I'm just like, this is not working. And it was so challenging for me to keep paying rent. And like, I was applying for jobs. I'm also not getting paid by unemployment. So everybody in the US who's losing their jobs at this time is also applying for unemployment. So I'm not getting paid. And I want to make sure I share that part because, I mean, when you're talking about being at your lowest low, like this was definitely probably my lowest low, is not being able to understand like financially what's going to happen next for us. I hadn't really had a very close relationship with my dad growing up. And, you know, at this point, out of respect to my grandparents, even though they raised me, I didn't want to move back with them because we didn't really know much about COVID. So I didn't want to, you know, expose them to something just by me going to the grocery store. So I called my stepmom one day. I was taking a walk outside of my son's middle school, and I called her and I said, I think I need to move in. And I said, I think I need to end my lease early, and you know, I don't know when a job is going to come for me, and, you know, what would that look like for us? She was like, absolutely, you know, without a doubt. And she was like, you can move in, you know, whenever you want. I'm going to tell your dad tonight at dinner. She was like, you know, whenever you're ready. So I was like, okay. And so I feel like when I'm going through these moments of like strife, that's all you can focus on. Like I couldn't even think. I'm like packing our things, just going through the motions to pack up and then move in with my dad. And this is so humbling that I'm in my mid-30s and like this is my experience that I'm having. So we move in with my dad. Justin is going to remote school, so all the schools were remote at the time. So he's in the 7th grade and he's going to school remotely. So this is a huge adjustment for us. And I'm there for almost 6 months and I'm applying for jobs nonstop. I'm very good at interviewing. I'm very good at even being the interviewer because, you know, I've always been in leadership roles. So I've hired hundreds of people in my career. I've helped so many of my friends get jobs. I've written resumes for so many friends. I've interview prepped them. So I'm really struggling at this time. Like, why is it so difficult for me to find a job? You know, of all people, like this should be a cakewalk for me. And this was God's challenge for me, you know? And so I am sitting in the stillness, like waiting for it to be my turn. And this is so challenging for me. So at this point, I think around Christmas time, I applied for the company that I work with now. I applied for a position that was in Maryland. The commute was going to be about 45 minutes. It was north of Baltimore, so I would have had to travel through the tunnel every day and pay for the tunnel, pay for the tolls. You have to pay to go to work in Maryland. It doesn't matter where you live. So like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to, take this job. And I was going to come back to working in retail. I hadn't worked in retail since 2017 when I had been a store manager for Ulta. So I was like, I'm going to go back to working in retail because at this point, I just was kind of at my wit's end. Like, I didn't know what else really to do. My dad, had said to me, he's like, I just want you to get a job because this is like, even debilitating for your mental health. So like seeing people around me, like seeing me go through this transition and it's so hard for me, I'm sure that was a struggle for them. So he's like, I just want you to get a job. And I'm just like, okay. So, I'm trying my best. I start interviewing for this job and it seemed like everything came in at the same time. I'm interviewing for 6 jobs at one time. So like now I went from getting no interviews for like almost a year to like 6 interviews at the same time. And as I'm going to the interviews, I'm like, this is just not it. Like I just felt it. I was like, this isn't the right fit for me. This isn't the right fit. So I'm going through these interviews and, I'm kind of figuring that out on my own way. I make it to the interview with this current company that I work for. And, it was a long process. I had 9 interviews in total. I'm at my 6th interview with them and I'm interviewing with the senior VP and she's like, Christina, you are overqualified for this role. She's like, obviously we both know that. And she's like, would you ever be open to moving to Nashville? So I kind of chuckle on the phone and I'm like, if the price is right, the deal is real. So like I'm looking at her, on FaceTime because we're on a Zoom interview and she just looked like so shocked. She was like, oh, okay. Like, because you're not expecting a candidate to say that. But I think for me, I'm just like, with no risk, there's no reward. So if you're not going to at least try, how do you even know? I had never even had Nashville on my wish list of places to travel. I had no interest of ever coming here. And so I didn't even know what diversity looked like here. So I immediately get off the phone with her and start doing my research. Like I wanted somewhere that would mimic what Howard County is for me in Maryland. If I was going to move here in Nashville. And so they do have a suburban county probably about 20 minutes south of Nashville, which is called Williamson County. And Howard County ranks like the top 3 for public school system in the United States, and Williamson County ranks top 10. And so I'm like, okay, maybe this could work. So I start really like deep diving. I'm like, let me really see like what's it like in this area? Like what would it be like to live there? And I'm looking up YouTube videos because I want to see people who have moved there and like how have they adjusted. And that night, I get the email update from them for the next interview, and they've changed all my interviews to Nashville. So I'm like, I guess that's it. Like, we're no longer even interviewing for the store, north of Baltimore. We're now moving on to Nashville. And so I didn't tell anyone except for my one friend who was previously in the military, and she had moved quite a few times with the military. So I knew she would have an understanding for what this experience would be like. And then I also told my very best friend, her name is Lauren. And so I told Lauren because I didn't want anyone to speak fear into me. I didn't want anyone to talk me out of this opportunity if it was meant for me. So I go through the next few interviews. I interview, with the senior executive team. And I get the job offer. I still didn't say anything to anyone for a week until I received my background check being cleared and the final written offer, because I still didn't want anyone to say like, are you crazy? As a single mom, like, what are you thinking? You can't pick up and move. Like, you can't relocate. And so I really just wanted to make that decision for myself firmly on my own. And then when the paper offer came in, I drove to my mom's house and I said, hey, I have something to tell you. And I like sat her down and she was like crying. I said, I'm moving to Nashville. She's like, are you kidding? And I'm like, no. And she's like, you're being for real. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so, I kind of like would tell people in that way. I kept it really close to like telling immediate family or like immediate friend circle because, for people who have never experienced relocation or for people who have never taken risks, which I'm sure you can speak to, they want to talk you out of it. Like, they don't know any better. They don't mean any harm, but they still, what are you thinking? Like, that's their first response. And I just didn't want to share in, having any fear spoken into me. I really wanted to be firm in my decision. And I often feel like, just try it. What's the worst that could happen? If it doesn't work out here, I can come back to Maryland. I've done it before. I've moved to Florida before Justin was born, and then I moved back to Maryland. So if it doesn't work, just come back. Like, I have a place to live here. So I was like, let's try it. So that's kind of how we got there. And, they gave me a relocation package, which was very generous, and we packed up our things and we tried it. And, here I am. It'll be 3 years, March the 5th. So we're almost a month away from that. And I can't believe we're still even here, to be honest. There's so many times I'm sure that, I think about coming back to Maryland and I consider it. And God's like, not now, and so I don't want to make that move without being in alignment with him. And I know that this journey of relocation does not belong to me. Like, this is not just for me. This is for other single moms or single dads that have no idea if they can do it. And I'm here to tell you that you can. If you put these things into place, like, this can happen for you, this can happen for anybody. And so I think that when you understand that your story and your purpose is not just for you, you become a lot less selfish with what you're willing to do in order for it to be able to positively impact other people. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. I mean, relocation is a hard thing. I mean, I went through that when I moved up here from Maryland up here to Boston. So, and I've been up here ever since. And, it's like one of those things, like, you just don't want to go back. You don't want to look back. And I've grown a lot since moving from Maryland to moving here. So I was like, I just kind of just want to stay here and like figure it out. And, I was able to figure it out. So it worked.
How many years are you at now?
I've been in Boston about 16 years now.
Wow.
I've been here a long time. Like, Malcolm is 10, Angelica is 5, she'll be 6 in a couple of months. So, and I have Cam now. Cam is 5, she'll be 6 in a couple of weeks. So my family's here, and my wife, and I started off like by myself being up here, just me, Angelica, Malcolm. And then, I got married, and now I have a whole family now. So it's just been a beautiful transition. You know what I mean? Because, it was hard for a while. You know what I mean? It was hard for a long time. And I was able to kind of get myself back together, and, and I was able to do that. So, here I am.
Congrats.
Thank
16 years. That is no
Yeah.
easy task. And,
Yeah.
it is challenging. I think it's challenging to start something new. You don't have any friends. You don't have any family. Like, I don't think that people understand how much weight goes into those things. Even navigating through, learning your new local grocery store or the farmer's market, or just small things that people have no idea. It's so easy to do your routine every single day.
Yeah.
And it really does take strength to stay. And I'm sure the same with you. We romanticize, where we came from and, what it was like for us there. And, if I go back, it's going to be so easy. And I'm like, I don't want to necessarily only do the things that are easy, because I don't want to look back when it's my last days and say, hey, did you do the things that were easy, or did you do the things that can inspire other people and be an inspiration for your legacy?
Right.
So kudos to you, because it is no easy task to be somewhere where you're not from. Trust me.
Right. You recently lost your grandmother, who I knew very well. I spent a lot of time at her house growing up. A lot of time. I spent the night over there a lot. But you lived there. You spent the most time with her outside of Maurice. Talk to me about like what that's been like for you not having her, and the relationship that you guys have had, and like how does it feel like not having her? Because I know how important she was to you, not only to you but also to your family as well.
Yeah, I mean, she's a once in a lifetime woman, you know. My grandmother is, you know, and was, I think, the most influential person I will ever have, probably in my life. You know, you and I talked very openly when, you know, you said, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh, do I want to come on here while I'm grieving? I don't want to start crying. But then I said to myself, I'm like, you know, life has phases and life has different chapters. And I don't want to pretend that, you know, every single chapter is a great chapter, because it's not. And so I definitely wanted to be able to chat with you and honor her and, you know, share just how incredible she is.
Mm-hmm.
She had 7 kids, and then she turned around and let her grandkids move in. Myself, Maurice, and then Maurice's older brother, Michael, as well.
Yeah.
And then I had Justin in Florida, and, you know, decided it wasn't working for me, so I moved back to Maryland. And she let us move back in, and I stayed there until Justin was 5. And then once he started kindergarten and I was able to stop paying for daycare, we moved out on our own. But even as I was growing up, I mean, there's so many things that I feel like are so impactful from a woman of her legacy. You know, I wash my clothes and I still hang dry everything, unless it's my sheets and my towels and my socks. Like, you know, I know that comes from her. Like, I used to hang my clothes to dry on the line outside of the house, even as a teenager. She loved to cook, so we would spend so much time cooking in the kitchen. And, like, I don't know if you know this, but I used to ride the bus, and it would be me, Maurice, and Brandon Brantley, and she would make breakfast sandwiches for us 3, like, that, you know, she would put them in a little aluminum foil, and she would pack our little breakfast sandwiches every day. And it's like, who has the opportunity or the time to even do that in today's day and age? I mean, she just always had that extra level of care. And just, even if it was like difficult, you know what I mean? Like her getting up in the morning for her grandkids to make us hot breakfast, and we're getting on the bus and not even having the hot breakfast just for us, but then for our friend too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she just is the most amazing woman. She taught me how to care for Justin when I moved back home when Justin was about 3 months. I mean, she really helped me navigate through learning how to be a mom and how I wanted to care for him. And, you know, I was really adamant that I didn't want to do spankings with Justin, and she was so incredibly supportive when, like, all of the rest of my family was like, what are you thinking? Like, you know, and she would back me up, and she was in alignment. Like, if this is what you want to do, you know, I'm going to support you. I remember calling her. I was in Florida, and when I was in Florida, I was the store manager for Juicy Couture. So I had a very short commute from where we lived in Naples, Florida, and it was about 2 miles, and I would call her in the morning on the way to work. And so I found out that I was pregnant with Justin, and of course I'm in my early 20s, and I'm scared crapless. Like, what am I going to do? I'm all the way down here, and I'm pregnant, you know, and it's just myself and Justin Sr., which is my son's dad, and I called her on the phone, and I'm like, hey, and she's like, hey, and I'm talking to her for a few minutes, and I said, I have something to tell you. And she said, I already know. And, like, that just speaks to how close we were. And I said, what am I going to tell you? Like, I hadn't even told my mom. It was just Justin Sr. and I that knew. And she said, you're pregnant. And I said, how did you know? And that's how close we were.
Yeah.
I just think the world of her. You know, I set up a little, like, at my little coffee bar here, I have her picture and her obituary, and just in the morning I light a little candle and honor her and, you know, save space for her showing up. The week that she passed, well, the week before, so my birthday is December 8th, which was on a Friday this past year, and on December 6th, which was a Wednesday, I had called the house. And, like, you know, I call all the time, so this is not, like, new, you know, something. I'm always calling. The phone rings off the hook on the house phone. I mean, my grandparents are probably one of the only people that still have a house phone. So I called the house phone, and, like, no one's answering. And then I called my aunt's cell phone, and Maurice answered her cell phone, and he switched it to FaceTime. And so I'm like, hey, and I kind of like look and I see her, and like, you know, I talk to my mom all the time. I talk to my aunts, but I hadn't really seen her on FaceTime like in a little while. And I had only been up one time last year in the summer for my mom's birthday in August. And so we had taken my mom to the beach for her birthday. And then when we drove back up, I left from DCA airport. So I went to see my grandparents before I left. So I hadn't seen her since August, but I hadn't really seen her on FaceTime in a couple weeks. And so when Maurice kind of panned the phone to show me her, she was so tiny, you know? And so she had lost a lot of weight. And I think that was his way of like silently telling me, like he kind of already knew, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't look well. And so when he turned the phone, she has dementia. So sometimes she will recognize, you know, us, and sometimes she won't, but she knows my voice. And so she immediately, her face just lit up and she's like smiling, you know, and she's like, you can see her kind of radiate, like she recognizes me. So I'm talking to her, and at the time my aunt is like monitoring her oxygen levels from a different room. My aunt comes in and she kind of grabs the phone and she's like, hey, her oxygen is dropping. I need to call the doctor. So I'm like, okay. And so, you know, I get off the phone with them, and my grandma, you know, would have health issues. So when she would go to the hospital, like we would just expect her to come home.
Come on.
I was just, you know, expecting her to come home. So a couple hours go by, and she had, like, I hadn't heard any updates. So I'm like, you know, I'm pressed. So I'm like, you know, hitting up Maurice, like, what's going on? He's like, I'm waiting for updates too. I'm trying not to be a nuisance to my aunt, but like, I want to know, you know, what the deal is. And so finally she's like, we're going to call you shortly. So, you know, my mom's siblings are all older, Craig's dad, and, you know, they don't really know how to work FaceTime and all that. So my mom's like, can you get us on a group FaceTime? So I'm like, yeah. So I call all of her siblings and I get them on a group FaceTime, and this is that Wednesday. And my cousin Sydney, which is my cousin Jerry's daughter, sits with us on this FaceTime, and she's like, you know, these are the things that the doctor is going to come in and tell you tomorrow. Like, we need to put her on a feeding tube, you know, and he's going to recommend that. She's like, I don't know if granddaddy is going to want to do the feeding tube or not. And so, like, I can kind of see my grandpa in the background. He's, like, laying over her hospital bed, and he's praying over her. And she's like, you know, there are complications that could come of doing the feeding tube, and there are things that, you know, might happen during the surgery. It's really high risk because, you know, she's older and she's so frail at this point. So all of us are kind of silent on the phone, and we're just like listening to the instruction from Sydney, because Sydney is a nurse. So that's why she's able to articulate to us what's going on. And so then we kind of all get off the phone, you know, and nobody really says anything. It's kind of quiet. And then I, you know, talked to my mom that evening. So at this point, I'm kind of on edge, because I'm like, for me, you know, I have to travel to get back there if things are getting bad. And I sit very closely with my spirituality in saying this and sharing it, because one of my only prayers that I had when I moved here was for God to give me enough time to make it back to say my goodbyes.
Yeah.
So I said, I will come here openly and freely. I will, you know, free fall into going here and being motivational for other people and doing this because this is what you have called me to do. But I just want to make it home to say goodbye to her. And I knew in my spirit that it was going to be somewhere around the 3-year mark. And I knew that just because I just had an idea. I don't know how. Even my mom has asked me, she's like, how do you know that? I'm like, I just knew like it was going to be somewhere close to the 3-year mark. God wasn't going to do it when I had first moved here, because I would have immediately turned around and went home, you know, and I needed to be well established here. I needed to be able to have settled into life here before she was able to gain her wings. And so the next day we get on a call with the doctor, and I get everybody on the group FaceTime, and I'm at work at this point. And so, you know, I'm just listening. My grandma hadn't been eating. And so the doctor said to us, you know, he's like, it's only a matter of time because she was not able to take food anymore. He's like, so, you know, you might want to come if you're coming. And so I looked at the doctor, and I didn't say anything at first, and so they went through each of the siblings, my mom's siblings, and said, does anybody have any questions? And so anyone who did have any questions asked. And then at the end, I'm the only grandchild on the phone. And my aunt's like, Christina, do you have anything, Tina, do you have anything to say? And I'm like, yeah, what are we talking here? Like, are we saying weeks we have, or, are we saying days? And he's like, we have days. So I immediately, once we all get off the phone, I book a flight. I'm like, tomorrow's my birthday. I don't even care. I'm like, I'm coming to work and then immediately going to the airport and I'm flying to Maryland. And so that's what I did. My birthday was that Friday. I went to work, and my boyfriend and my son picked me up from work. And after that, they dropped me off at the airport, and, I got in late to DCA around 11 something that night. And then I didn't tell anybody I was coming. So I only told my mom just because, she was so sad. I just needed her to have joy for something, which would have been, me coming to see her. And so my aunt and my mom had kind of been going back and forth about, no one was going to be able to sit with my grandma on that Saturday. So my aunt was nervous because we don't like to leave her in the hospital by herself. Like, we want to always be by her side. And so my aunt's like, no one's going to be here with her on Saturday. Other people had to work, or they may have had to take care of their grandkids or whatever. So my mom was like, I wanted to tell her so bad, like, Christina will be here. But she was like, I would rather her be surprised. And so I came into the hospital room that night, and it was really late after I had gotten the rental car and everything. And so I drove from DCA to Howard County General, and my aunt was asleep on the sofa, and it was 1:30 in the morning. And I came in and I looked over her and I said, hey. And I said, is it okay if I watch Nana tomorrow? And so, she just started crying, she was just so happy to have me there. So I made a little video on my Instagram, just no one knew I was there. So I would kind of pan the phone to show their reactions when they would walk in the hospital room, because everybody is just so happy to see me. But I knew that those were, my last couple of days that I would get to be with her. And so my last memory that I have, prior to me coming back to Nashville after that, was they came to take her in the ambulance home, to hospice at home. We really wanted her to hospice at home, and we knew she would have wanted that. And so the ambulance came to pick her up, and so I followed the ambulance, on Guilford Road, and, I followed her home, and we went past the church, and, we made it to her house, and, I'm helping to make sure that they get her in the house and get her settled in. And so then I was just saying to myself, as I was driving, I was like, this is the last time she's going to be on the road driving. This is the last time.
Yeah.
And so I think, there's something to be said also about anticipatory grief. So the grief that comes before, the worst moments of your life.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when they're going to happen. So that is hard.
Yep.
So you're kind of waiting for everything to change, and you don't know when that's going to be. And so kind of the leading up to was challenging for me. So I had plans to go home early that morning on Monday morning. And, the whole time I was there, I left her 3 times. One time I came to the house to shower. Another time I think I went to go get groceries from Target. And then the other time I went to Trader Joe's so I can make her flower arrangements, because she loves pink roses, and I wanted to make her some flower arrangements. And so, I just wanted to be in the house as much as possible. So I wake up on Monday morning, it's 4 something, and it's snowing. And I'm just I'm not going to the airport in the snow, you know what I mean? So I'm this is, I knew it was her. I knew she wasn't ready for me to leave yet. So I was let me just extend my flight. So I, decided to, because I was going to go straight from the airport to work. So I was you know what, I'm not going to go to work today. I'm going to just call out, and then I'm going to just stay here. So I took a later flight that evening, and then I flew back to Nashville, and, I told her when I was leaving how much I loved her, and I gave her kisses, and, I wanted her to know that I was okay, because even when I did tell her I was moving here a couple years ago, she was so nervous. She was like, why would you be moving down there? Like, she was still kind of coherent enough to like understand me moving. So she was like, why would you move there? Why would you want to leave being here with your family? And so I told her that I was okay. And, I told her how much I loved her and that Justin and I would be okay. And, I left. And so I knew leaving then, I think that's even hard. Like the flight coming back, the whole way you're by yourself and you're just crying because, this is the last time you're going to see this person who you love so much.
Yeah.
So the next day I have like some nasal things where I, have a deviated septum, which is why I sound congested. So I had to CT scan to like figure out what was going on with that. So I knew I needed to be back for that. So I went to that on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday I went back to work. And on Wednesday, I can't remember what I was texting my mom about, but they had all been there with her like every day. And my aunts and like my uncles would be there every day, like, at the house, just like spending time with her. And then on Thursday, same thing, they would be at the house spending time with her. So I would talk to my mom, or I would FaceTime and I would talk to her. And on Thursday, I was texting my mom about something, and she's like an instant texter when she sees our messages. So she hadn't texted me back. I remember looking at my phone and being like, that's odd. Like, she hasn't texted me back. Also, when I had woke up that morning, when I came back to Nashville, my aunt and I would text every morning because my aunt was spending the nights there. And I would say, how was she last night? And she would say, her breathing, was okay, or her oxygen was okay. And I had Googled how long can someone go without food. So it's 8 to 21 days. And I knew we were coming up near that kind of midway point. And so she hadn't been eating. So I was like, it's only a matter of time before, she passes. And so all of these things, I'm like, I can't believe I'm going through this, in my 30s. Like, I never thought this would be things that I would be having to come to grips with. Like, I just wanted more time with her. I wanted her to be here to see more things.
Yeah.
But that is selfish. So, she has done her good work and she deserves her rest. And so as a Christian, you have to sit with that and understand that, it comes our time where we do have to go home to the Father. And like, it's really not up to us to be here forever,
Yeah.
So that Thursday I'm at work and I'm texting my mom and she's not responding. And that morning I had texted my aunt like I had been doing, and she had called me. And so when she had called me, she kind of like sat there for a minute and I said hello. And then finally she said hello and she said, last night was okay. But I thought that was odd because our normal exchange was like a text in the morning. That morning I had dreamt my grandma had came to like my bathroom door and she was like, it's time for me to go. And then it's so crazy because that day she passed.
Yeah.
So like Thursday I had texted my mom. She wasn't responding like in the middle of the day, and we had been texting in the morning, and then she kind of had a pause. And so I was at work, and I'm on the floor because I work at a store. So I'm on the floor, and my mom never calls my work phone. Like, I have a regular cell phone and then I have a work cell phone. If she needs something like a super emergency, she'll call the work cell phone. Ironically, this day, like, I had sent 2 of my team members to lunch, and like I ended up with a work phone, like a cordless. And I never have a cordless, which is so crazy to me. And so I happened to have one this day because I told them they could go to lunch at the same time. And then they came back, I ate my lunch, and I still had this cordless. The phone rings, while we're all standing on the floor together. And I look at the phone, and it's like Fowler Jacqueline. And so one of my employees goes to answer the phone, and I'm like, it's my mom. And I just kind of stood there, like, took a pause because I knew what the call was about to be.
Yeah.
And then she answers the phone, hello, thank you for calling. And I immediately like grabbed the phone from her hand, and my mom was like, you need to walk to the back. And so like I thought in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to break down. I know it's coming. So like, I'm not going to cry. Oh my gosh, I cried. I literally like barely made it through the back door, and like my assistant saw me walking, and him and I, have worked together for 3 years. He's never given a hug. Like, he's very non-emotional, and I just collapsed, and he just let me cry the whole time. And, he packed my things up and loaded me into the car. I walked out of the back door, and, I drove home, and I just was like in a stance. Like, I don't even know how to, in a trance, I guess you could say. Like, Maurice called me on the phone, and I FaceTimed him most of the drive home, and I'm crying. He's crying. We're just kind of sitting in silence. And, we knew she was sick. So we knew it was coming, but it still doesn't prepare you for the worst day of your life.
No, it doesn't.
It is one of the saddest and most beautiful things at the same time, because I would never want her to suffer like that. When I felt like, how dare I want her to stay here for longer, and like, I know she is not well, she is not at her best, and she is tired and she deserves rest, and so I think sitting with that every day, and I have therapy weekly, and just talking through that and how much I adore her and how grateful I am to even have had time with her is just such a process. It was funny because, so I stayed home for the rest of the week from work. I really don't work on Sundays, but I said I'm going to change my schedule. I'm going to work that Sunday so that I can be off through Christmas break, because we had the funeral services the day before Christmas Eve. So I go to work on Sunday and I'm driving like normal. Nothing happens. I go to work on Monday and I'm driving, and there's a car driving in front of me. And the little emblem, like, how people put like a little name emblem or a sticky on their window?
Yeah.
It says Edna with a little like butterfly or something. And I'm like, that's her. Like, that's her telling me you are going to be okay. Like, that's her telling me that she is okay. And like, that's how close we were. Like, it hadn't even been a whole week, and she just wanted to give me confirmation and let me know that it is okay. All is well. That's such a unique name. To see that on the back of someone's car is so, like, that you can't make it up how ironic it is.
Yeah.
And I just know that was her and God's confirmation of, just letting me know that all is well and all is going to be well. We had a beautiful homegoing service for her. My aunt had printed 300 obituaries. She went the next day after the services and said, oh, can I get the remainder of the obituaries? And there was one left. Like, she was such a loved woman.
Yeah.
And there were so many of our friends who even came and made the services, and, just so many coworkers of, my mom's siblings and my mom's coworkers that came just near and far. And I just am so grateful to even come from a legacy such as hers. And it just lets me know, like, that I have such a, high legacy to live up to, of wanting to just emulate even how amazing she was, not only to her grandchildren, but to other children of other people. And I hope that, I can do that in my own small way. So
Yeah,
thank you for letting me share about
no problem. No problem at all. I spent a lot of time, at her home. I spent a lot of time having conversations with her. Like I said at the very beginning, your family is like my family. I spent so much time around your family. And I know how important she meant to not only you, but to everybody. She was always caring. She was always loving. And I just remember spending that time over at her house during the summer, or when I'm hanging out with Maurice, or when Craig brings me down there, or we're all just hanging out there until we go out and do something else. So, it's just a lot of good memories. And I'm just, I'm glad that, she was celebrated the way that she should have been celebrated, because she was a very amazing woman, and, she meant a lot to a lot of people. So, no problem at all. That's what this is all about, is just, giving you space to share and open up and, share with somebody else. There may be somebody else going through this same thing. I say that every episode. Like, I have people come on here and I'm like, there's somebody that this is going to resonate with, whether, it reaches a large mass of people or a little bit of people, like, it's going to resonate with somebody. So, thank you very much for sharing that with me. Yeah. On a little bit lighter note, if you had to invite 10 people to a dinner, dead or alive, who are you inviting?
Oh my gosh, my grandma, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I'm
Mm-hmm.
inviting her. I'm also inviting Oprah. I would love to
Oprah.
be able to have a conversation with Oprah. I think that would be so dope.
Yeah.
I also lost my stepdad at a very young age when I was 13. So I would invite him. He is the life of the party, Mr. Congeniality. So I definitely would have him there. So that's 3. Oprah, my grandma, Vernon. Let's see. Sorry, my puppy is right here. Then I would invite Barack Obama. I mean, I just think he is extraordinary and definitely would want to hear what he has to say. I'm inviting Jay-Z. I just think he's an incredible businessman.
Yeah.
And, we're both Sagittariuses. He's December 4th. I'm December 8th. There's just something very unique about a Sagittarius. So I'm inviting him for sure. We're at 5 now.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I'm also inviting my other grandma, my dad's mom.
Okay.
I think, I'm often told I have a lot of personality traits that are similar to hers, so I would love to be able to have her have a seat at the table too. Are we at 6 now?
6. Mm-hmm.
6, okay. I also am a huge, I don't want to say fan is not the right word, but there's a woman I follow on Instagram who I think is like the most influential woman that I follow on Instagram. Her name is Miley Teal, and she started a company called Curlbox, which is for Black women who have natural hair. And you get 5 full products. It's like a subscription box service a month. And so she started it from the ground up, and I just think she's incredible and very business savvy, and I would definitely want to hear what she has to say. So I would be inviting my leak. Sorry, Simba's a fan too. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm inviting my son to the table for sure as well. Actually, I think he's coming to get Simba. I'm inviting my son to the table. I think, like I said, I just think the world of what he has to say, and he is someone who is so influential in his own age bracket. And I really want to hear what he has to say. So I think he will be a phenomenal guest at the table. How many am I at? Am I not 9 yet?
That's 9. You got one more.
One more. Let me think deeply about this. My grandma's, Jay-Z, Barack, Malik, Justin, and who else am I inviting to the table? I gotta think on there for a minute. Let me see.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. It's a big deal. And I love a great dinner party. You don't get me wrong. So, I also feel like I would probably invite to the table Steve Jobs. I think he's such an incredible, an influential person in all the things that he accomplished in his short time here.
Yeah.
And I would want to hear what he has to say. Just an influential businessman, and I definitely would want to be able to learn and glean from him, and he would be my 10th seat at the table.
Yeah, I love doing this. I ask all my guests this on every episode. Like, it's so nice to see. At some point, when I have a little bit more time, I'm going to rewatch every episode and just look at the part where I ask people who they invite to dinner. And I'm just going to make I'm going to make some sort of like a post or a list, because it's just so amazing to hear like the different people that everybody will have at their dinner. Usually, like when I have artists on my podcast, they'll have like a lot of like artists or like different people. So like I don't think no one's ever said Oprah. No one's ever said Steve Jobs. Jay-Z's been mentioned a few times. Usually I get like Beyonce. People throw Beyonce in there. Barack, people say Michelle. So it's always like amazing to like hear everybody's list. That's why I love asking that question.
I love business.
Yeah.
I have been in retail management since the beginning of time, I feel like.
Yeah.
And there's so much to learn from that being your career. And there's so many people that I get to meet on a daily basis. I mean, the target market for my particular clientele that I service is definitely people who, are purchasing high-end furniture. And so in order to afford that, you're meeting a lot of people who are executives and VPs and CEOs and business owners and entrepreneurs. And you learn a lot just from being able to be in the room to have conversations with them, even from a sales perspective. And a lot of time I don't spend selling anymore because at this point in the game, it's my job to be able to train people to sell like I sell. So it's a little bit different, but still being able to have that exposure. I'm always interested to see not just what makes people successful, but what adversities have they overcome, I think is a huge question that I always have. I had a chance to sell to the former CEO of Levi's, and he went on to be the CEO of a company called Gibson Guitars, which is huge here in Nashville. So even be able to have conversations with him, and just other people that I've met as well that this store attracts has been a really dope experience. But hearing what adversities they've overcome, what things that they've done in business that they would do differently, and these are people that come in on a random Tuesday that I get to be able to have conversations with, because when you're purchasing a $10,000 sofa, it's a very intimate selling experience.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot different than if you're going to the Gap or Old Navy and purchasing, a $30 t-shirt. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have that exposure. I definitely am thankful for that, but I definitely want to have some people who have some great business experience, who have overcome adversities, is a huge thing for me, because how can I learn from that? How can I learn from these things that they've done right or done wrong, so that I can avoid those same mistakes or try to do them differently if that comes up in my own career path. So yeah, I think it would be a cool dinner.
No, that sounds like a great dinner to me. What's a quote that you live by?
I don't believe in regrets.
Don't believe in regrets. I like that.
I do not believe in regrets. I, don't believe in any regrets. I definitely feel like you gotta try it, and that gets me in trouble a lot of the time. But I do not believe in regrets. I believe, like, especially with the choices that you make choices, and these are things that you learn from. You either learn not to do it again, or, you may want to change something throughout that process the next time around. But I do not want to live a life with regrets. I don't want to look back and be like, hey, I should have never done that. No, I did it. So what? Moving on. And a lot of people spend a lot of time beating themselves up and saying, oh man, I wish I would have never. But it's just like, it happened that way for a reason. It was meant to be that way for a reason. It was meant to unfold that way for a reason. It's either a lesson or a blessing. It's going to be one or the two. So I believe in living life with no regrets, and being able to truly look back, and you can either be proud of the things that you've done, or you can learn from the things that you've done. And that's very true to my personality, is just to live with no regrets.
Yeah, I have so many quotes, you know what I mean? Being a teacher and teaching, I always start my classes off with a message of the day from somebody, just to get them motivated and get them understanding, the meaning of what life is and what going after your dreams really means. The one that I always come back to is, Nipsey Hussle, when he says the highest human act is to inspire. I do feel like while we're here, if you're in any position to inspire and help others, you're in a great position, whether that's being a teacher, running a store, or, being a police officer, or being a mayor, being a president. If you stand in front of people every day and people see you in the front every day, I think it's our job to make sure that we're inspiring and giving them something to look forward to. And I feel like that's what he, if there's one person that I would physically would like to meet and have a conversation with, Nipsey Hussle would be one of those people. Just like not knowing him, but hearing the stories. I read his book a few times. Great book, by the way. And just his mind, like how he started, his marathon clothing line. You know what I mean? He bet on himself, and betting on yourself gets you a long way. And that's what kind of like, even with the podcast, like that's what's been keeping me going. It's just that betting on myself, believing in what I have, and believing what I have is good enough to like stand the test of time. You know what I mean? Learning from other podcasts and talking to other people who are in a bigger position than me. Because a lot of people, believe it or not, like a lot of people who have 1 million subscribers, 2 million subscribers, I interact and talk to a lot of those people. So they give me, hey, you should try to do this or you should try to do that. But I think the best advice I heard was look around the landscape of the podcasting world. You want to make sure that you create your own lane. And do something that speaks to you. And you know what I mean? I tell people all the time, like, I'm not tapped into the industry or nothing like that, but I know a lot of incredible people. You know what I mean? So I'm like, if I can reach out to those people and get them to come on here, that's good enough for me, because I'm all about just people coming on telling their story. And that's what I built the platform for. So,
Are doing incredible work. I mean,
thank you.
I definitely have, asked you for advice and, taken a shot at attempting to do YouTube. I'm nowhere near as consistent as you are. I am nowhere near as consistent as you are. And, just even being able to see the trajectory of how this has changed for you and how you
Yeah.
continue to show up and you continue to use your platform to inspire and to be able to share your message or the message of those who are the guests with so many other people, like that in itself is so impactful.
Thank you.
What a dream to be able to do that. Like, what a dream to be able to share space with someone who is living out their dream. So, I definitely feel like you do a great job. Not good. From your quote, you said good. You do great. And, just an inspiration to even see how you have been consistent. You have shown up and you are chasing your dream. And I look forward to seeing this as it continues to grow and inspire more and more people around the world. And, that you have more and more people sharing their stories and what they are facing in adversities and what they have overcome. That's my favorite part of when someone comes on here, what they share. So, I am grateful to even have been able to share space and, listen and learn from you. So this is incredible.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And I definitely wanted to have you on here because I just think that you're incredible. And I think that you're doing a lot of wonderful things. And I feel like that you've overcome so much. And I feel like you continue to just overcome things and continue to rise to the top. So I also wanted to give you a space and give you the floor to talk about, your grandmother passing away. Because again, I know how important she was to you. And, she meant a lot to me also in my life. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you that time to really like talk about that because it's important.
I hope it helps someone,
Yeah.
just sharing all the things that I can even remember from that last week and how things transpired from me. As the process started happening, like even following pages, that have quotes for grief and how people are coping is something that is enlightening to me. It is something that everyone is going to experience. No one is not going to experience, whether it be grief from losing a loved one or grief from, a relocation story. And that chapter is now closed and I no longer live in Maryland and, I had to move on with my life. You can grieve what once was. So I think, that is part of just overcoming. And I hope that, it touches at least one person and, they get the opportunity to create their roadmap and, help them along their journey. So that's what life is about.
That is definitely what it's about. One more question before I let you go.
Yeah.
What would a what would a what would an older version of yourself tell a younger version of yourself?
dream bigger. Dream bigger. Even when I do things that are scary, or even when I do things that I feel like sometimes I have to be pushed into a corner in order to come out, swinging. I had to lose my job and lose it all, so to speak, for me to pick up and relocate. I hope that I learn those lessons quicker the next time around.
Yeah.
I hope when opportunities present themselves that I'm even more willing to take the risk and to try new things and to experience life in a different way. I am a learner of life. That's one of the other quotes that I love, is just showing up to learn through life every single day. That's such a huge thing for me. And I think that you can learn something from every single person that you talk to. And so I hope that even seeing that at this point in life, that I continue to look back and say, do it quicker, don't wait. Do it now. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait until, it's been 6, 7, 8 months since you've been working and then you decided to relocate to another state. I hope, next time around I do those dreams even faster and those things come to fruition for me even quicker, and I hear the message even quicker. Sometimes when we hear God's voice, it's quiet, and, we have to silence the noise in order to be able to hear him even clearer. And I hope the next time around, or the next few times around, that when I hear that voice, I activate immediately instead of kind of waiting. So sometimes I can be a little too patient with that process. So dream bigger and shoot for the stars. Just continue to try and to, take a chance on yourself and bet on yourself. And you will never be disappointed if you put the energy in to bet on yourself. So I'm really grateful to be able to even be presented with opportunities that other people would dream of, So I hope I continue to take advantage of those things and continue to share stage and share space with other people coming behind me. To always open a door for someone else is huge for me too. But dream bigger and do it faster.
No, that's well said. Thank you so much for being a part of episode 56 of the Hang with A podcast. I appreciate you very much. You mean a lot to me. Your family means a lot to me, and I'm just happy that we were able to have this conversation. And I'm always here to support you, no matter what. And just thank you for being a part of my platform.
Thank you to everyone who is watching. Make sure you all like, comment, and subscribe to the Hanging with Abe podcast. And, I look forward to seeing all your guests in the future, and I look forward to seeing extraordinary things from you.
Thank you very much.